My name is Evelyn Carter, and I'm 68 years old. 2 days ago, I woke up in a hospital bed, my body aching from hip replacement surgery, my mind still foggy from the anesthesia. The sterile lights burned my eyes, and every small movement sent a dull throb through my bones. I was supposed to be resting, recovering, but what happened next? Well, it changed everything. Stay with me until the end of this story, and let me know in the comments what city you're watching from. I'd love to see how far my words travel. That morning, the nurse poked her head in, her voice too cheerful for the gray haze I was in. "Evelyn, you've got a visitor," she said, stepping aside. And there he was. Nathan, my son-in-law, standing in the doorway, clutching a manila envelope like it was a lifeline. His suit was crisp, his smile polished, but I've known Nathan for 6 years now. And that smile? It never quite reaches his eyes. "Evelyn, you're looking stronger already," he said, his voice smooth as silk. He glided into the room, the faint scent of his expensive cologne cutting through the antiseptic air. "We've all been so worried about you." I managed a weak nod, my eyes drifting to the envelope in his hand. Nathan set a small bouquet on the side table. Carnations, the kind you grab last minute, from the hospital gift shop, I noticed, because I always notice the little things. "Where's Lily?" I asked, my voice scratchy from the tubes they'd pulled out the day before. "Lily, my daughter, my only child." "Oh, she's tied up with work," Nathan said, waving a hand like it was nothing. "You know how busy she gets, but she sends her love." I didn't believe him. Lily hadn't called, hadn't visited, not once since my surgery. The daughter who used to curl up in my lap, who'd draw me pictures of flowers and suns that now felt like a stranger. And Nathan's excuses? They were as familiar as that cold smile of his. He pulled a chair close to my bed, too close, and leaned in. "I actually brought something for you to look at," he said, tapping the envelope. "Just a few papers that need your signature." "Papers?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. I could feel my pulse quicken, not from the surgery, but from the way his eyes gleamed. "Nothing big," he assured me, his smile tightening just a fraction. "Lily and we're planning a fresh start. Things have been tough financially, you know, with the market and all. We need to secure some funds, and since you're still listed as co-owner on a couple of accounts, and that beach condo, the bank just needs your signature to move things along." He opened the envelope, spreading documents across the thin hospital blanket on my lap. Yellow highlighter marked the signature lines, bold and glaring. "Just sign here, and here, and here," he said, handing me a pen. "It's all standard stuff." I stared at the papers, my hand trembling as I took the pen. Not from weakness, no, from anger. Did he really think I wouldn't see through this? These weren't bank forms for some fresh start. These were deeds, transfer of ownership, legal papers that would hand over my beach condo, the one I'd spent 20 years saving for, the place where Lily and I used to watch the waves crash, straight to them. "A fresh start sounds nice," I said softly, my eyes fixed on the papers. "What kind of start are you planning?" Nathan's smile widened, thinking he had me. "Oh, you know, maybe a new house, something to give Lily and the kids a better life. We thought it'd be good to move forward, especially after everything you've been through." His gaze flicked to the bandage peeking out from my hospital gown, like my pain was his leverage. I nodded slowly, as if I was considering it. "And Lily's on board with this?" I asked, my voice steady now. "Absolutely," he said, a touch too quickly. "She's the one who suggested I bring these by, said you'd understand." Of course she did. My daughter, the girl who once promised to take care of me, now sending her husband to trick her mother while I lay in a hospital bed. The ache in my hip was nothing compared to the heaviness in my chest. I looked at the papers again, then picked up the pen. My signature was shaky but clear. With each stroke, I watched Nathan's smile grow, his shoulders relax, like he'd just won a prize. "Thank you, Evelyn," he said, gathering the papers quickly, sliding them back into the envelope. "This means the world to us. I'll get these to the bank right away." I just smiled, a small, quiet smile. He thought it was the tired expression of an old woman who didn't know what she'd done. "Get some rest," he said, patting my hand like I was a child. "I'll tell Lily you're doing great." As he walked out, his steps light, I leaned back against the pillows and closed my eyes. If only he knew that 3 months ago, I'd already transferred my condo into a protected trust. If only he knew the accounts he thought he was getting were closed. The money moved where he'd never touch it. If only he knew those papers he was so eager to file would lead to nothing but a hard lesson. I wasn't naive. I'd seen the way Nathan eyed my condo when they visited, heard their whispers about when Evelyn's gone. I'd noticed how Lily stopped bringing my grandkids by, unless they needed something. The pain in my chest deepened, but it wasn't from my surgery. It was the pain of betrayal, of realizing my daughter, the little girl I'd raised alone, had become someone I didn't know, but I wasn't going to let them take what was mine. Not this time. Monday was coming, and with it, Nathan would learn what happens when you underestimate a 68-year-old woman who's had enough. So, that's where my story begins. Stick with me, because it only gets more complicated from here. And tell me, what city are you listening from? I'm curious to know. As I lay in that hospital bed, the beeping of the heart monitor fading into the background, my mind drifted. Not to Nathan's smug smile or those papers he thought would fool me, but to Lily, my little girl, the one who used to climb into my lap, her tiny hands clutching, crayons, drawing pictures of flowers and suns that she'd taped to the fridge. Where did that girl go? When did she become someone who'd let her husband walk into my hospital room and try to take everything I'd worked for? I closed my eyes and let the memories wash over me, like waves on the shore of that beach condo we loved so much. Lily was 10 when her father Tom died. A car accident, sudden, senseless. One moment he was kissing us goodbye, heading to work. The next, he was gone. I was 34, a young widow, a third-grade teacher with a mortgage and a daughter who needed me to be strong. I wasn't sure I could be, but for Lily, I had to try. We lived in a small house in Wilmington, North Carolina. Nothing fancy, but it was ours. I'd work all day at the elementary school, shaping little minds, teaching kids to read and dream. Then at night, I'd tutor students privately, grading papers until midnight to make ends meet. "Mom, you look tired," Lily would say, her big brown eyes worried, as she brought me a mug of tea she'd made herself. It was always too sweet, but I drank every sip. "Sweetheart, I'm fine," I'd tell her, pulling her close. "As long as I've got you, I'm the luckiest mom in the world." And I meant it. Lily was my world, my reason to keep going. She was a dreamer, always sketching in her notebook, filling it with flowers, waves, and little houses by the sea. "One day, Mom," she'd say, "we'll live by the ocean, just you and me." I'd laugh and ruffle her hair, thinking it was just a child's fantasy. But those words stuck with me, like a promise we'd both keep. When Lily was 15, we took our first trip to the beach condo. I'd saved for years, every extra dollar from tutoring, every skipped coffee, just to afford a week's rental in a little place on Carolina Beach. It wasn't much. A one-bedroom unit with creaky floors and a view of the dunes. But to us, it was paradise. Lily ran straight to the water, her laughter mixing with the sound of the waves. "This is it, Mom," she shouted, her bare feet splashing in the surf. "This is our place." That week, we built sand castles, collected shells, stayed up late reading her favorite books. I can still see her, curled up on the couch, her nose buried in Anne of Green. Gables, her voice soft as she read passages aloud to me. Those were the moments I held on to when the world felt right. Years later, when Lily was in college, I made a decision. I was 48, still teaching, still saving every penny. I bought that condo, not a rental this time, but ours. A small, weathered place, but it had a porch that faced the ocean, and it was filled with memories of Lily's laughter. I surprised her with the keys on her 21st birthday. "Mom, you did this for us," she asked, tears in her eyes as she hugged me tight. "I'm going to bring my kids here one day, and we'll all be together." I believed her. How could I not? Lily was my pride, my joy. She worked hard, got a scholarship to study art history, became the first in our family to graduate college. I'd stay up late sewing her graduation dress, my fingers sore from the needle, because I wanted her to shine, and she did. The day she walked across that stage, I clapped until my hands hurt, tears streaming down my face. "This is just the start, Mom," she promised, hugging me outside the auditorium. "I'm going to make you proud," and for a while, she did. After college, Lily got a job at a small art gallery in Raleigh. She'd call me every Sunday, telling me about her latest exhibit or a funny story about a customer. Sometimes she'd drive down to Wilmington, and we'd spend weekends at the condo, walking the beach, talking about her dreams. She'd sketch the ocean, her pencils flying across the page, and I'd watch her, thinking how lucky I was to have a daughter like her. I didn't know then that those days wouldn't last. I didn't know that someone would come into her life and change everything. When Lily was 26, she met Nathan. I remember the first time she brought him to the condo. He was charming, I'll give him that. A real estate agent with big dreams, always talking about closing the next deal or moving up in the world. His clothes were tailored, his car too shiny for a man his age, but his eyes, they scanned my condo like he was appraising it, lingering on the hardwood floors, the ocean view. "It's cozy," he said, his voice dripping with something I couldn't quite name. "A bit dated, though. You ever think about selling, Evelyn? This market's hot right now." I brushed it off, thinking he was just making conversation. Lily laughed, swatting his arm. "Stop it, Nathan, this place is Mom's heart." But I saw the way she looked at him, like he held the key to a life she'd always wanted. And maybe, after all our years of scraping by, she thought he did. They got married a year later, a big wedding in Raleigh that I could barely afford to help with. Nathan's parents covered most of it, and he never let me forget it. "Don't worry, Evelyn," he'd say. "We've got this under control." But I saw the way Lily changed after that day. Her calls became shorter, her visits less frequent. When they did come to the condo, Nathan would make comments. "This place could use a modern touch," he'd say, or "retirement homes are so nice these days, Evelyn. Ever think about simplifying?" Lily never corrected him. She'd just smile, or change the subject, and slowly, my little girl, the one who'd drawn me pictures of flowers, started to fade away. I lay in that hospital bed, my hip throbbing, my heart heavier than ever. When had it all changed? When had my daughter become someone who'd send her husband to trick me while I was still recovering from surgery. I couldn't pinpoint the moment, but I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't the same woman who'd let life happen to her. Not anymore. The condo, our condo, was more than just a place. It was every late night I'd worked, every dream I'd had for Lily, every memory of her laughter by the sea. And I wasn't going to let Nathan or even Lily take that from me, lying in that hospital bed. The hum of the machines fading into a dull rhythm. I couldn't stop thinking about Lily, my daughter, the girl who once promised we'd live by the ocean together, who'd sketch waves and sunsets just for me. How had she become someone who'd let Nathan walk into my room with papers to steal my beach condo? The pain in my hip was nothing compared to the ache in my heart, wondering where I'd lost her. I closed my eyes and let my mind wander back, not to the sweet days of her childhood, but to the years when everything started to change, when Nathan came into our lives and my little girl began to slip away. Lily was 26 when she met him, full of dreams, working at that art gallery in Raleigh. She'd call me excited about a new painting or a client who loved her ideas. "Mom, I'm finally doing what I love," she'd say, her voice bright over the phone. I'd smile, picturing her surrounded by canvases, her hands smudged with charcoal like when she was a kid. Then she met Nathan. He was 30, a real estate agent with a flashy smile and bigger ambitions. "He's going places, Mom," Lily told me the first time she mentioned him. "He's got this energy, like he knows exactly what he wants." I was happy for her, or at least I tried to be. But the first time I met him, at my beach condo, something felt off. Nathan shook my hand, his grip too firm, his eyes scanning the condo like he was pricing it in his head. "Nice little spot," he said, leaning against the porch railing, looking out at the ocean. "Could fetch a good price if you ever wanted to sell, Evelyn. Beachfront's hot right now." I laughed it off, thinking he was just showing off his job. But Lily, she hung on his every word, her eyes sparkling like he'd invented the stars. "Nathan's got a knack for seeing potential," she said, looping her arm through his. I nodded, but I noticed how she didn't defend the condo, didn't say it was our special place. They got married a year later, a big fancy wedding that felt more like a show than a celebration. Nathan's parents paid for most of it, booking a venue with chandeliers and waiters in bow ties. I chipped in what I could, dipping into my savings, but Nathan always made sure I knew it wasn't enough. "Don't stress, Evelyn," he'd say, clapping a hand on my shoulder. "We've got this covered." Lily wore a dress that cost more than my monthly pension, and she looked beautiful, but distant. During the reception, I overheard Nathan's mother whisper to a guest, "It's a shame Lily's mom couldn't contribute more. Such a modest background." I swallowed the sting and kept smiling for Lily, but I saw it then. The way she glanced at Nathan before answering questions, like she needed his approval. After the wedding, everything changed. Lily's Sunday, calls stopped. When I'd call her, she'd sound rushed, distracted. "Work's crazy, Mom," she'd say. Or, "Nathan's got a big deal coming up." Visits to Wilmington became rare, and when they did come to the condo, Nathan's comments grew bolder. "This place is charming, in a retro way," he'd say, running a hand over the kitchen counter. "But it's a lot for you to manage." "Alone, Evelyn? Have you thought about downsizing? There are great senior communities nearby." Senior communities? I was barely 60 then, still gardening, still walking the beach every morning. But Nathan talked like I was one step from a nursing home. And Lily, she'd just nod or say something vague like, "He's got a point, Mom," I started, noticing other things too, The way Nathan bragged about his clients. Millionaires who trusted him with their investments. The way Lily dressed now. Designer bags. Shoes she couldn't have afforded on her gallery salary. Nathan says it's about looking the part, she told me once, when I asked about her new coat. But I saw the strain in her eyes, like she was trying to keep up with a life she didn't quite fit into. 3 years into their marriage, they hit trouble. Nathan had convinced Lily to buy a big house in a fancy Raleigh neighborhood. One they couldn't afford. It's an investment, he'd said, but the mortgage payments were crushing them. That's when they came to me, asking for a loan. It's just temporary, Mom, Lily said, sitting at my kitchen table, her hands twisting in her lap. $30,000 to tide us over. We'll pay you back with interest. Nathan leaned back in his chair, confident as ever. You know how the market is, Evelyn. A little cash flow issue. But we've got big deals in the pipeline. Each looked at Lily, her eyes pleading, and I couldn't say no. That money was my safety net, saved for emergencies, for my retirement. But I wrote the check because she was my daughter. They never paid me back, not a dime. Then came the day. Grandkids, twin girls, Emma and Ava. I'd hoped they'd bring us closer, but Nathan and Lily rarely brought them to the condo. When they did, Nathan hovered, like my home wasn't good enough. Careful, Emma, he'd say, pulling her away from a shelf. We don't want to break Grandma's things. Lily would laugh, but it was a nervous sound, and I'd stand there, watching my granddaughters, wondering why they barely knew me. Last summer, everything came to a head. They were visiting the condo, and I stepped outside to water my garden. The kitchen window was open, and their voices carried out to me, clear as day. How much longer do you think she'll stay here? Nathan asked, his voice low, calculating. I don't know, Lily replied, hesitant. Mom loves this place. It's her life. It's a gold mine, Lily, Nathan said, sharper now. Beachfront property like this? We could sell it, pay off the house, get ahead for once. If her health keeps declining, we could step in. As her only daughter, you'd have power of attorney. There was a pause, a moment, where my Lily, my dreamer, could have shut him down, could have said no. Instead, she said, You're right, it's just hard to think about. My daughter, talking about taking my home, my memories, like they were just an asset to liquidate. I stood there, the watering can shaking in my hands, feeling like the ground had dropped out from under me. That night, after they left, I sat on the condo's porch, listening to the waves. I didn't cry. I hadn't cried since Tom's funeral. But the pain, it was deeper than anything I'd felt before. My daughter, the girl I'd raised alone, the one I'd sacrificed everything for, was planning to betray me, and Nathan, he was the one pulling the strings. I saw it now. The way he'd molded her, turned her dreams into his own, made her believe this life of debt and appearances was what she wanted. But Lily, she'd led him. She'd chosen him over me back in the hospital. I opened my eyes, the sterile light stinging. I'd trusted Lily once, given her everything, but I wasn't that trusting widow anymore. I'd seen what they were capable of, and I'd made sure they'd never take what was mine. Monday was coming, and with it, the truth would hit them hard. I just wondered, would Lily ever see who she'd become? Or was my little girl gone for good? The hospital room felt smaller after Nathan left, his cologne lingering like a bad memory. I stared at the ceiling, the papers he'd handed me still burning in my mind. Those signature lines, highlighted in yellow, taunting me. He thought he'd won. Thought I was just a tired old woman, too weak to see through his lies. But he didn't know me. Not really. I shifted against the stiff pillows, wincing as my hip throbbed. But the pain didn't matter. What mattered was what I'd done, months before this moment, to make sure Nathan and Lily could never take my beach condo, my home, my heart. That day last summer, when I overheard them through the kitchen window, it changed me. Their words echoed in my head. Nathan's cold calculation, Lily's quiet agreement. If her health keeps declining, we could step in. I'd stood there, the watering can dripping onto my shoes, realizing my own daughter was plotting to take everything I'd built. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the condo's porch, the ocean whispering secrets in the dark. I kept asking myself, how had it come to this? But questions wouldn't protect me. Action would. The next morning, I made a call. Margaret Lee, my old friend from teaching days, now a lawyer specializing in elder law. We hadn't spoken in years, not since a school reunion where we'd laughed over coffee about the kids we'd taught. But I trusted her, and I needed someone I could trust. Evelyn, what's going on? Margaret asked, her voice warm but concerned, when I showed up at her office in downtown Wilmington. I took a deep breath and told her everything. Nathan's comments about selling the condo, Lily's silence, the conversation I'd overheard, the way they'd borrowed $30,000 and never paid it back. As I spoke, Margaret's face hardened, not with judgment, but with understanding. I've seen this before, she said, leaning forward, her hands folded on her desk. Family members who think they're entitled to what their parents have, spouses who push them into it. But we can protect you, Evelyn, and we will. Over the next 2 hours, she laid out a plan. First, we'd create an irrevocable trust for the condo. Once the deed's transferred, Margaret explained, you'll still live there, use it, enjoy it. But legally, it's owned by the trust. No one, not even Lily, can challenge it. Not now. Not after you're gone. I nodded, feeling a weight lift. The condo wasn't just a place. It was every late night I'd tutored, every dream I'd had for Lily, every memory of her running through the waves. I wasn't going to let them take that from me. Next, we tackled the bank accounts. Years ago, I'd added Lily's name to a couple of accounts, thinking it'd make things easier if something happened to me. Those need to go, Margaret said firmly. We'll close them, move the money to new accounts only you can access. What if they try to get me to sign something? I asked, my voice quieter than I meant it to be. Margaret smiled, a glint in her eye. Let them try. Anything you sign now, transferring assets already in the trust, it's worthless. The trust is the legal owner, not you. It was strange, signing those trust papers, watching Margaret notarize them. It felt like I was locking a door I'd left open too long. But it wasn't just about protecting the condo or the money. It was about protecting myself from the people I loved most. In the months that followed, I played my part. I didn't let on that anything had changed. When Lily and Nathan came over, I'd cook dinner, listened to Nathan's stories about his big deals, smiled through Lily's comments about how tough the condo must be to maintain. You should think about something smaller, Mom, she'd say, her eyes avoiding mine. I'd just nod, change the subject, all while knowing their plans were doomed. It wasn't easy, pretending. Every time I saw Lily, I searched for my little girl, the one who'd drawn me pictures. But she wasn't there, not anymore. When my hip started giving out last winter, I knew surgery was coming, and I knew they'd see it as their chance, a vulnerable moment when I'd be too weak to read the fine print. So I prepared. I met with Margaret again, made sure every detail was airtight. I even had my doctor document my mental clarity, just in case they tried to claim I wasn't competent. And then it happened. Nathan walked into my hospital room with that envelope, thinking he'd outsmarted me. I almost felt sorry for him, watching him hand me the pen, his smile so sure. "Thank you, Evelyn," he'd said, gathering those papers like they were gold. "This means the world to us." I'd smiled back, letting him think he'd won. But inside, I was calm, because 3 months ago, I'd already locked the door. The condo was safe in the trust. The accounts were closed. The money was mine alone. Those papers he was so eager to file, they'd lead to nothing but a cold, hard truth. I leaned back in the hospital bed, the pain in my hip dull but steady. I thought about Lily, about the daughter I'd raised, the one who'd promised we'd live by the ocean together. Had she known what Nathan was doing? Had she agreed to it? The questions hurt more than the surgery, but I pushed them aside. Monday was coming. Nathan would go to the bank, expecting to claim my condo, my life. And he'd find out exactly what happens when you underestimate a 68-year-old woman who's learned to fight for herself. I closed my eyes, the ocean's rhythm in my memory, lulling me into a restless sleep. I didn't know what Monday would bring, for me or for Lily. But I knew one thing: I was ready. The hospital discharged me on Sunday afternoon, a day earlier than expected. I didn't tell Lily or Nathan. I couldn't bear the thought of them driving me home. Nathan's smug smile, Lily's empty excuses. Instead, I called my neighbor, Clara, my friend of 20 years, the one person I could still trust. "You don't owe them a thing, Evelyn," Clara said, her voice sharp as she helped me settle into my condo's old armchair. "After everything you've done for that girl." I managed a tired smile, leaning back, the familiar creak of the chair grounding me. "I just want to be home when it happens," I said. "When they find out." Clara nodded, her eyes soft with understanding. "I'll be right next door if you need me." Monday morning came, bright and warm, the ocean breeze slipping through my open windows. Despite the ache in my hip, I felt steady. I made coffee, took my meds, and sat by the window with a book I hadn't touched in months. I was ready for the storm. The clock struck 9, and right on cue, I heard a car door slam outside, footsteps on the porch, then the jangle of keys. They didn't even knock. "Mom?" Lily's voice called out, hesitant, as she stepped into the condo. Nathan followed, his polished shoes clicking on the hardwood. "In here," I said calmly, not moving from my chair. Lily appeared in the doorway, her face pale, her eyes avoiding mine. Nathan was right behind, his usual confidence replaced by something else. Anger, maybe, or panic. "How are you feeling, Mom?" Lily asked. Her voice strained as she crossed the room to kiss my cheek. It felt hollow, like a performance. "As well as I can after surgery," I said, my gaze steady. "You didn't have to come all this way." Nathan cleared his throat, setting his briefcase on the coffee table. "We wanted to check on you," he said, but his eyes darted to Lily, like he was waiting for her to take the lead. "That's kind of you," I said, my voice even. "How'd things go at the bank?" Nathan froze. Just for a second, but I caught it. Lily's hands twisted together, her knuckles white. "What do you mean?" she asked, too quickly. "The papers," I said, closing my book, setting it aside. "The ones Nathan had me sign for your fresh start." Nathan's face flushed, and he forced a laugh. "Oh, those. They're being processed. Just routine stuff." I tilted my head, studying him. Routine stuff, like transferring my condo to you and Lily? Or those accounts you thought were still joint? The room went quiet. The only sound, the distant crash of waves outside. Lily's eyes widened, and Nathan's smile vanished. Evelyn, what are you talking about? He said, his voice tight. Don't, I said, my tone sharper now. Don't insult me. Nathan, I read every word of those papers, deeds, power of attorney. You thought I'd just sign away my home, my life, while I was lying in a hospital bed. Lily's face crumpled, and she stepped forward. Mom, it wasn't like that. We were just trying to what? I cut her off, my voice steady but cold. Help me by taking the condo I spent 20 years saving for. The place we used to love together? Nathan's jaw clenched, and he stepped toward me, his voice low. You're twisting this, Evelyn. We needed those funds to get back on our feet. You can't live in that condo forever. It's too much for you. I laughed, a short, bitter sound. Too much for me, or too much for you to wait for? Mom, please, Lily said, her voice breaking. We didn't mean to hurt you. Nathan said it was the best way to... Enough, I said, raising a hand. 6 months ago, I transferred the condo into an irrevocable trust. The accounts? Closed. The money? Moved where you'll never touch it. Those papers you filed, they're worthless. Nathan's face went red, his hands balling into fists. You tricked us, he snapped, stepping closer. You let me think. No. Nathan, I said, standing slowly, ignoring the pain in my hip. You tried to trick me. I just protected what's mine. Lily sank onto the couch, her hands covering her face. Mom, I didn't know. You didn't know, I repeated, my voice softer now, but heavy with disappointment. I heard you, Lily. Last summer, through the kitchen window, you and Nathan, talking about selling my home, about power of attorney. You didn't stop him. You agreed. She looked up, tears streaming down her cheeks, but she didn't deny it. Nathan paced, his polished veneer cracking. This is ridiculous, he hissed. You can't do this. We'll fight it. We'll get lawyers. Go! Ahead, I said, calm as the ocean outside. Margaret Lee, my lawyer, made sure everything's airtight. But by all means, waste your money. Nathan grabbed his briefcase, his face a mask of fury. This isn't over, Evelyn. He turned to Lily, his voice sharp. Let's go. Lily hesitated, looking at me, her eyes pleading for something I couldn't give. Then she followed him, the door slamming behind them. The silence that followed was heavy, but I didn't cry. I sat back down, my hands steady, and sipped my coffee. I'd won this round, but the victory felt hollow. My daughter, my Lily, was gone. Days passed, and the rumors started trickling in. Clara stopped by with the news, her voice low. Their house in Raleigh, it's in foreclosure, she said, setting a plate of cookies on my table. Couldn't keep up with the mortgage. Word is, they're in deep trouble. I nodded, unsurprised. Nathan's big deals, his flashy car, it was all a house of cards. But then Clara leaned closer, her eyes narrowing. There's something else, Evelyn. I heard from Helen. Her son works at the bank. Nathan's been asking around about private loans, not the legal kind. My heart skipped. What kind of loans? I asked, my voice steady but my mind racing. The kind you don't get from a bank, Clara said, her words careful. Helen says Nathan's been meeting with some shady types, people who don't play nice when you miss payments. I sat back, the pieces falling into place. Nathan's desperation, the way he'd pushed Lily to go along with his plan. It wasn't just greed. He was in deeper than I'd thought that night. I lay awake, the ocean's rhythm no longer soothing. I'd protected my condo, my life. But what about Lily? Was she just a pawn in Nathan's game? Or had she chosen this path? And if Nathan was tangled up with dangerous people, what did that mean for my daughter? I didn't have answers, but I knew one thing. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Something bigger was coming. Something I wasn't sure I was ready for. The days after Nathan and Lily stormed out of my condo were quiet. Too quiet. I'd expected angry phone calls, maybe a lawyer's letter, or even Nathan showing up to argue. But there was nothing, just the sound of the waves outside my window and the weight of Clara's words echoing in my mind. Nathan, tangled up with shady types, private loans, the kind you don't walk away from. I sat on my porch that night, a cup of tea gone cold in my hands, staring at the ocean. I'd protected my condo, my life. But Lily, my little girl, was she caught in something bigger than I'd realized? Was she just following Nathan? Or had she chosen this path? The questions gnawed at me, keeping me awake long after the stars came out. A week later, I got my answer. Clara came over, her face tight with worry, a folded piece of paper in her hand. "Evelyn," she said, sitting across from me at the kitchen table. "You need to see this." She slid the paper toward me. It was a printout from a local news site, a small article about a real estate agent in Raleigh, unnamed, under investigation for ties to an illegal lending operation. "Helen's son at the bank sent this," Clara said, her voice low. "He didn't say it was Nathan, but he didn't have to." My heart sank, but I wasn't surprised. Nathan's desperation in the hospital, the way he'd pushed Lily to go along. With his plan, it all made sense now. He wasn't just greedy, he was scared. "Clara," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "How bad is this?" She shook her head, her eyes full of concern. "Bad? These people, they don't mess around. If Nathan's in debt to them, he's in trouble. And Lily..." She trailed off, but I knew what she meant. Lily was in danger too. I spent the next day pacing my condo, my hip aching with every step, my mind racing. I'd protected myself from Nathan's schemes, but this was different. This wasn't just about money anymore. If Nathan was mixed up with dangerous people, Lily could get hurt. My daughter, the girl who'd drawn me pictures of flowers, who'd promised we'd live by the ocean together, could I just stand by and let her fall? But the other part of me, the part that had learned to draw boundaries, whispered a harder truth. Lily had chosen this. She'd stood by Nathan, agreed to his plan, let him walk into my hospital room with those papers. She wasn't innocent. I needed answers. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I hired a private investigator. His name was Paul, a quiet man recommended by Margaret, my lawyer. "I'll dig into Nathan's dealings," he said, his voice calm over the phone. "Give me a week." That week felt like a lifetime. I tried to keep busy, tending my garden, reading, but every night I'd lie awake, picturing Lily's face. Was she scared? Did she even know what Nathan had gotten her into? Paul called on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. "Evelyn," he said, his tone serious. "It's worse than you thought. Nathan borrowed $50,000 from a group out of Raleigh. Not a bank. Not even close. They're tied to some rough people. He's missed payments, and they're not happy." I gripped the phone, my heart pounding. "What about Lily?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "She didn't. Sign the loans," Paul said. "But she's been covering for him, helping him dodge calls, lying to his clients." She's in deep, but not as deep as Nathan. I closed my eyes, the rain tapping against the windows. What happens if he doesn't pay? Paul's voice was grim. These people don't negotiate. They'll come after him, and anyone close to him, like Lily, my daughter. I thanked Paul, hung up, and sat there, staring at the ocean through the rain-streaked glass. I had a choice to make. I could go to the police, turn Nathan in, let him face the consequences of his choices. It'd be justice. He'd tried to steal my home, my memories. He deserved it. But Lily, she'd be caught in the fallout. The police might not protect her, and those people Nathan owed. They wouldn't care who got hurt. Or I could confront Nathan, try to get him to leave Lily, to disappear before things got worse. I chose the second path, not because I forgave him, but because I still loved my daughter, even after everything. The next morning, I drove to Raleigh. My hip ached, but I didn't care. I found Nathan at his office, a sleek building with glass walls and fake plants. He looked surprised to see me. His tie loosened, dark circles under his eyes. "Evelyn," he said, standing up, his voice wary. "What are you doing here?" "We need to talk," I said, closing the door behind me. "Alone." He hesitated, then nodded, sitting back down. I didn't sit. I stood, my hands steady, my voice calm. "I know about the loans, Nathan, the 50,000, the people you owe. I know everything." His face went pale, his hands gripping the desk. "You don't understand." "I understand enough," I cut him off. "You dragged Lily into this. You put her in danger, and I'm giving you one chance to make it right. Leave her. Get out of her life, and don't come back." He laughed, a nervous, shaky sound. "You think I can just walk away?" "These people, I don't care about your excuses," I said, my voice like steel. "You leave, or I go to the police with everything Paul found. And trust me, he found plenty." Nathan stared at me, his charm gone, his confidence shattered. "You'd do that to Lily?" he asked, his voice low. "I'm doing this for Lily," I said, leaning forward. "You've got 1 week. If you're still in Raleigh, still near my daughter, I'll make the call." I turned and walked out, my heart pounding, my hands shaking. I didn't look back. That night, I sat on my porch, the rain still falling, the ocean a gray blur. I'd protected Lily, or at least, I'd tried, but I hadn't told her. I couldn't, not yet. She'd chosen Nathan, chosen his lies, and I wasn't sure she'd believe me. Paul kept tabs on Nathan, reporting back quietly. A few days later, he called. "Nathan's gone," he said. "Left Raleigh, no one knows where." I exhaled, relief mixing with a strange sadness. But Lily, she was still here, and I knew, sooner or later, she'd come to me. The question was, would she be ready to face the truth, or was my little girl still lost in Nathan's shadow? The weeks after Nathan left were quiet, but not peaceful. The ocean still crashed outside my condo. The gulls still called, but inside me there was a storm. I'd protected my home, my life. I'd even protected Lily by driving Nathan away. But the cost. My daughter hadn't called, hadn't texted, hadn't come by. Was she angry, hurt, or was she still lost, chasing the life Nathan had promised her? I kept busy to fill the silence. I tended my garden, the roses blooming brighter than ever. I joined a book club at the library, older women like me, sharing stories over coffee and paperbacks. But every night, I'd sit on my porch, staring at the waves, wondering if Lily would ever come back to me. Then, one Saturday morning, as I was pulling weeds from the flower beds, I heard a car pull into my driveway. I looked up, and there she was, Lily, standing by her old sedan, her hair pulled back, her face pale and tired. No designer clothes, no Nathan, just my daughter, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. "Mom," she said, her voice soft, almost breaking. I stood slowly, brushing dirt from my hands, my heart pounding. "Lily," I said, keeping my voice steady. "What are you doing here?" She took a step forward, then stopped, her eyes brimming with tears. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I nodded, leading her inside. The condo felt different, with her in it, like the air was heavier. She sat on the couch, her hands twisting in her lap, just like when she'd asked for that loan years ago. I sat across from her, waiting. I wasn't going to make this easy. "Not this time." "I'm sorry, Mom," she said finally, her voice cracking. "For everything, the papers, Nathan, all of it. I didn't know how far he'd gone until he left." I stayed quiet, watching her. I wanted to believe her. But I'd heard her agree with him that day by the kitchen window. I'd seen her stand by while he tried to take my home. "I didn't know about the loans," she went on, tears spilling down her cheeks. "Not the bad ones. He told me it was just business deals, that we'd pay it all back. I was so stupid, Mom. I believed him." I leaned back, my hands folded, my heart torn. "You didn't just believe him, Lily," I said softly. "You helped him. You let him walk into my hospital room with papers to take my condo. You stood by him, even when you knew it was wrong." She flinched, like my words were a slap. "I know," she whispered, her head bowing. "I was caught up in trying to be someone I'm not. The house, the lifestyle. I thought it was what I wanted. But I lost myself, Mom. And I lost you." Her words hit me, hard. I saw the little girl who'd drawn me pictures, who'd laughed with me by the ocean. But I also saw the woman who'd betrayed me, who'd chosen Nathan's lies over her own mother. "I want to make it right," she said, looking up, her eyes pleading. "I don't know how, but I want to try." I took a deep breath, weighing her words. Part of me wanted to pull her into my arms, to tell her it was okay. But the stronger part, the part I'd found these past months, knew better. Love doesn't mean letting people hurt you. Not even your daughter. "You can stay here," I said finally, my voice calm but firm. "The guest room's open for 3 months, no rent, but you'll help with the house, the garden, the dishes, and you'll find a job. You'll go to counseling, figure out why you let yourself get lost. If you can't do that, you leave. No second chances." Lily's eyes widened, like she hadn't expected me to say yes. "Mom, thank you," she said, her voice trembling. "Don't thank me yet," I said, a small smile tugging at my lips. "The garden's a mess, and I've got a list of chores a mile long." She laughed, a shaky, genuine sound, the first I'd heard from her in years, and for a moment, I saw my little girl again. Over the next few months, things changed, slowly. Lily got a job at a local art supply store. Nothing glamorous, but she seemed lighter. She started therapy, coming home with stories about what she was learning about herself. We worked in the garden together, pruning roses, planting new bulbs. Sometimes we'd sit on the porch, watching the sunset, not saying much, just being. It wasn't perfect. There were days when I'd catch her staring out at the ocean, her face heavy with guilt. Days when I'd wonder if I could ever fully trust her again. But we were trying, both of us, and that was enough. For now, I started to find my own peace, too. The book club became my refuge, a circle of women who understood loss, betrayal, and the quiet strength that comes with age. I'd read novels by lamplight, losing myself in stories, rediscovering the joy I'd forgotten. Lily wasn't the same girl who'd drawn me pictures, and I wasn't the same mother who'd given everything without question. But maybe that was okay. Maybe healing isn't about going back, but about building something new with clearer boundaries and harder-won trust today. I turned. 69. The sun is setting over the ocean, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, and my condo is filled with warmth, laughter, the kind I hadn't heard in years. My book club friends are here. Clara and her homemade peach cobbler, Margaret with a bottle of wine and her sharp legal jokes, and Lily, my daughter, sitting at the table, her smile soft but genuine. As she slices a cake she baked herself. It's a little lopsided, but it's hers, and that's enough. I look around, my heart full, but not without scars. It's been 6 months since Lily came back, since she stood on my porch, broken and sorry, asking for a chance to make things right. She's kept her promises. She's working at the art supply store, showing up to therapy, helping me plant new roses in the garden. She's not the little girl who drew me pictures anymore, but she's finding her way back to herself, and maybe to me. Nathan's gone for good. Last I heard, he'd moved across the country, chasing another big deal, leaving Lily to pick up the pieces. I don't know if she'll ever fully understand what I did, hiring that investigator, confronting him to keep her safe. I haven't told her, not yet. Some truths are heavier than they need to be. I think back to that day in the hospital, when Nathan handed me those papers, thinking he could take my home, my memories. I think of the years I spent giving everything to Lily, sacrificing, so I could give her a better life. And I think of the moment I chose to protect myself, to draw a line in the sand, even if it meant losing her for a while. That choice wasn't easy. It hurt, deeper than any surgery to see my daughter drift so far. But it taught me something I wish I'd learned sooner. Love doesn't mean giving until you're empty. It doesn't mean letting people walk over you, even the ones you die for. Love means boundaries, strength, and sometimes letting those you love face the consequences of their choices. I look at Lily now, laughing with Clara over a story about her twins, and I feel hope. Not the blind kind I used to have, but a cautious, hard-earned hope. We're building something new, her and me. It's not perfect, and it may never be what it was, but it's honest, and that's worth more than I can say. As Lily lights the candles on my cake, she grins, a spark of the girl she used to be. "Make a wish, Mom," she says, her voice soft. I close my eyes, but I don't wish. I don't need to. Everything I need is here, this condo, filled with memories of waves and laughter. A daughter who's trying, who's learning, and a strength I found in myself when I stood my ground and said, "No more." Some lessons come late in life, but they're no less precious. I learned to protect my heart, my home, and still leave room for forgiveness when it's earned. I learned that healing isn't about erasing the scars, but about carrying them with grace and choosing who you let back in. So, I'm curious about you, listening to my story. What would you have done in my place? Have you ever had to draw a line with someone you love, or find your own strength after betrayal? Share your thoughts below, and tell me what city you're watching from. I'd love to know how far this story has reached And if you're still here, check out 2 other stories from my channel on the final screen. They'll surprise you, just like this one did me. Thank you for staying with me until the end.